your book couldn't be more timely. Congratulations on an excellent book, by the way.
Thank you so
And
much.
let me tell everybody that's listening and not watching, we also have your lovely wife Sharon's with you today. So Sharon, welcome. Thanks for enduring the two of us. A lot of shiny heads over here. But what caused you to write this particular book, Pastor?
Well, it's really something that sprang from my own life. You know, just the backstory. I grew up in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, in the South, and Doctor, there was just an understanding, nonverbal understanding that Black people and white people didn't get along. That was the culture there, and that was further clarified by the fact geographically that Tuscaloosa, my hometown, is divided by the Black Warrior River. And it was like the white folks were on the north side of the town and the Black people were on the south side, and you just didn't cross the river. I remember going into third grade at the tail end of integration when we got the news that we were going to be bused to the white side of town. I really don't recall in my mind seeing a white student. A few teachers at our Black school were white, but I really don't recall seeing a white student until I was bused to the north side to go to school. On the way to the north side, you cross the river. There's a geography change. I noticed that the homes were very well, the lawns were very well manicured. The hedges were trimmed. The streets were clean. Just a different world. And something on the inside of me initially said, I belong on this side of town. You know, it's like your outsides.
I'm liking this.
Yeah, your outsides are catching up with your insides, you know, which has a lot to do even with victim thinking being perpetuated, just environment. But once we get to the new school, the chalkboards are nice and clean. The building is well lit, fresh paint. All the playground equipment worked. But on the inside, I was saying, you know what, there's going to be some racial problems because Black kids and white kids aren't supposed to interact. I had a great teacher who was happened to be a friend of my grandmother's, Southern AME pastor. She was the wife of a Southern pastor. And she happened to be my third grade teacher, but she was the most refined, stately Black woman I'd ever met. And she would do something that was revolutionary. She would put our names on the board whenever we did well in class, not for punitive reasons, but whenever we did well, she would put our names up. I noticed that my name was on the board quite often, and something was happening on the inside of me. And really by providence in third grade, it hit me that the white kids around me weren't against me and they weren't keeping me from doing well in school. And from that point, the seed was planted in my mind that I didn't believe in white supremacy because I didn't believe in Black inferiority. I understood in third grade that intrinsic worth, knowing my identity, knowing what I was capable of, I could not be robbed of that because of the perceptions of the people that were around me. Now, that was the seed, and that really began to kind of shape my life, and I experienced what I call zero victim relationships all throughout my life, healthy, quality relationships with people of all ethnicities. And, you know, a few years later, many years later, as a matter of fact, I was working at a church in the South suburbs, which is a church I pastor now. And we took an attitudinal assessment. And in that attitudinal assessment, one of the categories, it graded the degree to which you saw yourself as a victim. My score comes back as 0. And eventually the guy who facilitated the assessment said, you know what, I need to talk. I've never seen anybody score 0 in the area of victim thinking. Where did that come from? How did you approach life? You know, what is your thinking? And I explained to him what happened to me in third grade when I was really liberated and freed from understanding and believing that the people around me could marginalize my life. Now, that's not to say that we don't have a number of challenges in our society and broken systems. Of course we do. Broken people create broken systems, but not being a victim of the system and knowing that the things that are in me, what God has placed in me, who I am, those are much, much more powerful forces than the opposition that comes against me. And I think that's the premise of zero victim mindset. Imagine what people could do in life if they did not believe that they were victims. Of course, things happen, but, you know.
Well, of course. And let me ask you about that. You said you didn't believe in white supremacy because you didn't believe in Black inferiority.
Yep.
Do you think you have to have one in order to have the other? Do you think that the black man, the black woman, the black child has to be instilled with a feeling of inferiority for white supremacy to reign?
You have to buy in at some point. And I'm not saying that there are not legitimate instances of folks that you interact with that communicate that, or sometimes you're in a situation where there are inequities in terms of power and privilege and those kinds of things. Absolutely. But you have to participate. At some point, you've got to believe it and embrace it for it to be operative in your life. I would tell our church for years, I don't know who the grand dragon or the grand wizard of the KKK is. I don't know who he is, the highest guy. I love him. Now, he has problems. He has a number of different things that he needs to work out in his life. But as far as James Ward, I love him. I care about him. I have empathy because of the problematic thoughts and sentiments that he has. There's something greater in me. The love of God in me is greater than the hatred in him. I would never allow him to be in power over me, for his hatred for me to undermine my love for him. That's the power of zero victim thinking. Now, that's not to say that we give him a pass or justify anything that he does in his actions, but there's something in me that is greater than the hatred that's in him. If we could ever get that message, I think it's revolutionary and it's a game changer to the things we're dealing with in life.
Well, that's why I think your book is so well written and so timely. I'm a great student of Thomas Sowell, who is part of the Hoover Project at Stanford University. And he talks about a lot of systemic racism. And he says some of what you're saying, in that you have to buy into it. He's not saying that it's not built into society, but that you have to be willing to bend to it in order for it to have agency in your life. And what you're saying is you've never bought into the fact that you were inferior in some way. They may condescend to you. They may try to close a door to you. They may try and hold you back, but it's up to you to accept or reject that.
That's correct. I mean, Doctor, when you know your identity, you cannot possibly be convinced that you are something or someone other than who you know you are. If you try to convince me that I'm an automobile right now, I would think that you're insane, not me. And so when I have a grasp of my identity, knowing that I've been made in the image of God, every human has been made in the image of God, the Imago Dei. When I understand that, you rob or disempower other people in terms of their right and their capacity to define or to redefine. Whenever you give the power to define, you've given away identity. You've given away your soul. You've given away your future, your perceptions, your mind, your emotions. Everything has been sold when you give the power to define. And I think that individuals, we've gotten away from really understanding identity. I think that there's no freedom from victim thinking without faith. I think faith has a tremendous role, an essential role in understanding it. But it really comes back to the identity of who an individual is and not feeling that you've been defined by situations or circumstances. Victimization happens in life. It's an event that happens in life. But victim thinking has to do with the residual effect of that victimization, that it's inevitable and it's an elongated period of time that you are living in the aftermath of a traumatic event that happened in your life. We can't control victimizations. It's part of life. The world is a hostile world. But how we respond to those things is our responsibility.
You don't deny the fact that you and Sharon might go to buy a house and they might turn you away because of your skin color, or you might go to sell a house and get 20% less for it because you are a black couple. They say, well, we're going to appraise this for 20 or 25% less, which we know exists because of redlining.
Correct.
In the real estate industry. I've read 3 or 4 articles on that just this week for a show we're doing to out that as still happening. So you're saying, yeah, that can happen. Yep. We can be victimized by that, But if we then walk away from that and allow it to color the filter through which we see the world from that point on, that's our choice.
That's correct. Yeah.
That's where victimhood comes in, that we begin to see things through a victim lens and begin to take on the role of victimhood.
Yeah. Because after that incident, who really loses? It's not the victimizer, it's the victim. And the intensity that I have for communicating the zero victim message is because victimization happens. And so it's not a denial at all. You know, folks have kind of misunderstood my premise in some cases and say, you know, well, you just kind of acknowledge that you don't want to acknowledge that things happen and there's racism and there's systemic. No, I acknowledge that they exist, which is exactly why we need to get prepared mentally, spiritually, and emotionally to deal with those things. As a pastor, I've often said that I've discovered that the people who do well in life are the people who learn to manage their challenges well, because the challenges are inevitable. Pitfalls of victimization, they're inevitable. I say that we have a sin problem. It's not a skin problem. So there's an infection in the human heart that makes people discriminate and treat each other the way that we do. And it has little to do with skin color. From a biblical standpoint, let's go back to Genesis 4, when Cain killed his own brother Abel. Same mother, same ethnicity, same race. And you see an expression of sin and wickedness in his heart. So I say it's a sin problem, not a skin problem. When we're empowered to deal with the problems and the injustices and the inequities that we're dealing with in life, it gives us opportunity to be victorious over those. So let's go back to that incident when you use in terms of the home. The victimizer, sure, there's discrimination. Some kind of injustice has been committed against me because I was not able to purchase a home at that time or the price changed. But I'm not going to perpetually allow my children and my grandchildren to suffer at the hands of some victimizer. I will not give them that kind of power and that kind of authority to control my destiny in life. Am I giving any justification to the fact that it happened? Absolutely not. It should be dealt with, but I'm going to deny the opportunity to control my life. That's the power of zero victim thinking.